In yesterday's game against the Los Angeles Chargers, the Las Vegas Raiders were unable to convert the opportunities that they were given. The offense really failed the Raiders, and we ended up losing that game. But truth be told, after watching the tape, I'm actually a lot more excited about this Raiders team than I was last night. Last night I was out. I was like, man, this is awful. We're the worst team in the NFL. And of course, that was a huge overreaction because watching the tape, Geno Smith had a much better game than what I think people will kind of give him credit for. Now, of course, Geno Smith is the reason why we lost, right? The 3 interceptions. You can't have those. But I also think Chip Kelly did not do a good job putting Geno Smith in position to have success, especially in the first half. And I'll show you guys some tape and I'll talk to you guys about exactly my thinking behind all of these different things. Our offensive line was also really bad, specifically on the inside. Dylan Parham, Alex Kappa, and Jordan Meredith. All 3 of these guys were absolutely terrible. Surprisingly, DJ Glaze was good, man. And I shouldn't say surprisingly, but DJ Glaze looked really good. So shout out to DJ Glaze. Colt Miller, phenomenal, right? Absolute superstar out there at the left tackle position. Let's talk about it, man. Let's talk about kind of what we saw out there. Now, I should just say this right now. This video is going to be a lot more negative than it will be positive. But sometimes you got to do this. You got to do what you got to do. We got to call it out, right? Because it needs to be corrected. We are 1-1. The season's not over. We have 15 games left still. And the Raiders are going to win a lot of those. So hopefully they can correct some of these issues. Let's start right away. First thing that I think I noticed with the Raiders, especially in the first half, was Chip Kelly did a terrible job designing plays to beat the Chargers' defensive scheme. When you play the Las Vegas Raiders, they're going to run cover 1, they're going to run cover 3. That's going to be the shell that the Raiders are going to come out in. Pete Carroll loves to run the cover 3. There's coaches in the NFL that do the same exact thing as Pete Carroll. Dan Quinn loves to run cover 1, cover 3. Robert Saleh runs a lot of cover 1, cover 3. There's coaches on the other side of this. You got guys like Jesse Minter, Mike McDonald, Vic Fangio, Steve Spagnuolo. These guys are going to utilize what is called the cover 2 shell, right? So just keeping 2 safeties deep, essentially. And this is very basic stuff. If you just follow the NFL, you kind of watch a little bit of tape. And Chip Kelly came out and he just did not design concepts the right way, in my opinion. And I think the Raiders really struggled in the first half, partly because of this. To me, when I watched some of these plays by the Raiders, it just didn't look good. There are multiple plays where the Raiders, they come out against cover 2, cover 4, and they come out in these 2x2 formations. You have 2 guys to the left, 2 guys to the right. If you run cover 2 or cover 4 and you're going up against a 2x2, cover 4, cover 2, that's a strong point, right? That's the best thing you can go up against is a offense that's in a 2x2. Because in a cover 4, you're going to have 3 guys to one side, you'll have 3 guys to the other side. Going up against 2 guys, right? And based off of which side the running back's on, that side will get 1 extra guy, right? My point in saying this is this is basic stuff. And for some reason, the Raiders came out in these 2x2 formations probably like 9 times in the first half. And all 9 of these times, like, it was a check down for like 2 yards, or, the quarterback throws it away, or the quarterback goes down, or, there are moments where it just didn't make sense because guys weren't getting open. Again, the strong suit of a cover 4 defense comes against a 2x2. The way to beat a cover 4, and the Raiders did make this adjustment in the second half, is overload one side. Get 3 guys on one side and run 3 guys at 3 different levels against the cover 4. Cover 4 struggles if you run concepts and you space it the right way. In the first half, we did not space it the right way. In the second half, we did. The first 3 drives the Raiders had were good drives. The first drive gets us all the way right downfield. The first drive we had in the second half specifically, we drive right downfield, multiple chunk plays on that second drive. And unfortunately for the Raiders, it's a 10, 11-minute drive. 3rd and 6, Dylan Parham gets called for a hold, and that kind of ends the drive. It's a really unfortunate situation because I don't think Dylan Parham actually held on this play specifically. Now, Dylan Parham was terrible last night. Penalty was not a penalty in my opinion, right? The defensive lineman slips. Dylan Parham even lets him go. And for some reason, they still call this. It was a 3rd and 6. We picked up the first down, right? We would have had 4 more opportunities to potentially get that touchdown. And because of the hold, now you're in a 3rd and 16. Quarterback just checks it down and kick the field goal. So an 11-minute drive, first drive that we had in the second half, we drive right downfield on the Chargers. And on the second drive that we had the football in the second half, same exact situation. We literally drive right downfield on the Chargers, and we get all the way down like the 20-ish yard line. Generally speaking, on the second drive of the second half, the Raiders still drove right downfield. Now, the interception that Geno Smith throws on this drive that basically ends the drive, to me, this is 100% on Geno as well. You have to be smart in these moments. You have to know as an offense, hey, the score right now is 20-9. It's a 2-possession game, which means we need to score points 2 different times. You kick the field goal, it's a 1-possession game. It's an 8-point game at that point. So on 3rd and 3 or whatever it was, you cannot turn the ball over in this moment. And I understand you give Jakobi Meyers a 50-50 opportunity. He's in a one-on-one situation. I understand the thought process of Geno Smith, but then on the other side of this, if the pass gets tipped up, or if Jakobi doesn't make the play and you get a hand on the football, there's a high chance it's going to be intercepted. That's exactly what ended up happening on the second drive. The Raiders had the football in the second half. First drive, the Raiders had the football in the second half. Drive right downfield, kick a field goal. The second drive, you go right downfield. If you just kicked that field goal, it would have been a 1-possession game. This game's a lot closer than what people realize. To me, I think the Raiders really shot themselves in the foot. And I also did not agree with the fact that you have Brock Bowers out there when he is not healthy. On that drive where Geno Smith throws the interception to Jakobi Meyers, on the guy that's covering Jakobi, the play right before that, as soon as the quarterback took the ball, he literally looked right over to Brock Bowers, and he was trying to throw the ball to Brock Bowers. Bowers is hurt. He was unable to beat this guy that's pressing him. That right there is the type of player that Brock Bowers was last night. He was hurt. He was limping. Multiple examples where you can just watch this guy and he's not able to get into his cuts, get out of his breaks. Even when he jumped up to catch a pass, he was clearly not trying to land on the left knee. To me, this game is not so important that you risk Brock's, you risk him even further. Let the guy sit. Let him have the 2 weeks he could have had before this Commanders game. Now you just reset the clock where now you're hoping that he's going to be healthy against the Commanders. He still might not be healthy. To me, that's a huge issue right there, and I think that's a bad decision by Pete Carroll, Chip Kelly. I think it's a really, really poor decision. I would rather lose this game without Brock Bowers, knowing that Brock Bowers will be healthy going into the Commanders game. The Raiders decided not to do that, and I think it was a huge mistake. There was even a play. It was a 4th and 3 on the 3rd drive. We had the ball in the second half. So just to kind of recap, the first drive in the second half, we get 3 points. The second drive in the second half, we throw an interception. The 3rd drive of the second half, the Raiders start to drive a little bit, right? They pick up some nice yards. They get into a 4th and 3. And Geno Smith takes the snap. He looks right at Brock Bowers. The play's designed for Brock. Brock's just half a second slow because he's not able to plant that foot into the ground. You can just tell, when he does plant, he kind of skips a little bit. Like the cut's not very clean. And with that, Geno quickly gets off that because, Geno looks and Brock, just took him half a second longer. And Geno felt like by the time Brock actually hit the route, he would not have been able to fit the ball in. So Geno tries running right. He gets sacked. That play right there ends up hurting the Raiders as well, right? So you have multiple drives where the Raiders kind of shoot themselves in the foot. You look at the fact that the Raiders gave the Chargers 3 points on the first drive. You look at the fact that you throw an interception down in the red zone. You have a holding down in the red zone. Those are points that you're leaving out there. And, some of that is on Geno Smith, but some of that also is because Brock Bowers is hurt. Some of that is because of the fact that, we're trying to design concepts where it's a cover 4, cover 2, and we're running 2x2, right? Some of these things is also on other people other than Geno Smith. And I know Geno Smith is getting a ton of shit, a ton of hate. I see all the comments on Twitter where people are trashing Geno. There's a reason why the football community, right? Not Raider fans, not me, a content creator for the Raiders. The football community, right? The guys that cover the draft, the guys that break down tape of the NFL, the guys that work, for Yahoo and Bleacher Report and Sports Illustrated and all these other websites. There's a reason why a lot of these people really, really like Geno. The guy's a good quarterback. He's smart. He knows what he's doing as a quarterback. To me, in yesterday's game, Chip Kelly failed us in the first quarter. Pete Carroll's decision to keep Brock Bowers was a bad decision because there were plays where Geno literally looked at Brock and he was not able to make get out of his cut or actually make the play, maybe beat press coverage. But there were also moments where the offensive line kind of failed us a little bit. And let's talk about that. The Raiders had a couple of what is called the shot play, right? They're deep design concepts. You keep in 2 tight ends. You keep in your running back. You essentially are going to play action and you're going to run, maybe 2 or 3 guys deep. The Raiders had these plays designed, and there was one play specifically where I think it's a touchdown. Trey Tucker ends up beating that corner. The corner on the opposite side had to, potentially come and help. Trey Tucker's not going to allow that guy. That guy's not catching Tucker. If Geno Smith can step into this throw, this is a touchdown. Unfortunately, Dylan Parham gets pushed right back into Geno Smith. And with that, Geno's not able to actually step up and throw the pass. And with that, we end up not scoring in a play where you're designing these shot plays. You're not going to be able to run like 30 plays where guys are wide open. You'll have maybe 4 plays where you call the perfect offense against the perfect defense. You have guys open, but the offensive line has to hold up in those moments. And for the Raiders yesterday, our offensive line broke down a lot. In my opinion, and you guys, if you need the tape to watch it yourselves, because we all have eyeballs. If you need the tape, message me on Twitter. I will send you guys the tape so you guys can watch it yourselves. Yesterday, the offensive line was absolutely garbage. And it was mostly on the inside, right? DJ Glaze looked pretty good yesterday. Colt Miller looked pretty good yesterday. The interior guys had about 30 losing snaps combined between the 3 guys. That's not winning football. If your offensive linemen are losing that much on the inside, you have that Trey Tucker designed play, could have been a touchdown. You have another play in which Thornton ends up getting a step. If the quarterback can actually step forward as he throws the football, you may have a touchdown on this one. Maybe you hit Dante Thornton in stride. But Geno Smith can't step up because Dylan Parham's right in his face, and Geno just kind of throws it using his, like the arm strength that he has, just kind of standing still, which you're not going to be able to lead your wide receiver if you can't step into a pass. So the ball is obviously going to be underthrown and ends up just kind of being broken up. But Thornton has a step, and again, it's important that the offensive line has to keep a quarterback clean. If you can't keep a quarterback clean, you're not going to be able to hit these passes. To me, I think the Raiders' interior offensive line was really, really bad. Dylan Parham had so many losing snaps yesterday. Alex Kappa was just as bad as Dylan Parham, if not worse. There was a 10-yard sack that Khalil Mack had early on in the game. Some people are saying, hey, this is 100% on Ashton Jeanty. He has to switch with DJ Glaze. One of those guys has to take Khalil. One of those guys has to take Derwin James. What people don't realize is this is a simulated pressure, right? In a simulated pressure, it is up to the offensive lineman to be fast in terms of processing, in terms of brain power. They have to be able to swap this. If you guys just look at the offensive lineman on this, Colt Miller and Dylan Parham's guys both end up dropping off. The Chargers are only rushing 4 people. The Raiders have 6 blockers. You need to be able to pick this up. The Raiders, 6 offensive linemen against 4. How do you not pick this up? So if you guys watch Colt Miller and Dylan Parham, their guys drop off. Both Colt Miller and Dylan Parham look to the inside as soon as that happens. Because what's happening is they want to help on the inside. They know the pressure's coming to the right of the formation. So you're going to see Meredith ends up passing his guy off to Colton and Dylan Parham. And you can see the guy that's lined up on Alex Kappa ends up being swapped to Meredith. So you can see the swaps kind of happening in slow motion. And with that, you can even see Alex Kappa looks to the right. And you can see he gets his head to the right because, again, you know that if guys are dropping off on one side, they're running a defensive line game on the other side. They're bringing some sort of pressure. Alex Kappa was just a second slow to get to Khalil Mack, and Mack ends up splitting it, and he ends up getting to the quarterback, and you're going to lose 10 yards on this play. This was a 3rd down situation. The Raiders were on a pretty nice drive before Khalil Mack shuts it down. Some people will say this is on Ashton Jeanty, this is on DJ Glaze. I am telling you guys, as someone that watches tape, this is just a normal, very basic, every team runs this type of concept. Offensive line has to swap this. I could show you guys 100 examples where an offensive line actually does swap this. Look at the center here, for example, of the Seattle Seahawks. Once again, it's a simulated pressure. You're bringing a defensive line game over here to the right. Look at the center pick this guy up. It's like the very, very last second he picks it up. But the center actually picks it up. And guess what? Sam Darnold hits his for like 50 yards. You see their center, the Seattle Seahawks center. This is an undrafted free agent in his, I believe this is his 2nd season. His name's Sundell. You see this guy picking it up. That is what Alex Kappa has to do on this play. So you can't come into this play and say, hey, this guy should have picked this up. Like Ashton Jeanty should have picked up Khalil Mack. That doesn't make sense, right? Offensive linemen, if there's 6 of you blocking and there's 4 guys coming, you need to pick that up. The Raiders struggled with this against the Patriots. They struggled with this against the Chargers. And it wasn't just that. Alex Kappa had multiple bad reps where he was unable to anchor, where he wasn't able to swap on the defensive line game. He was slow in processing. And it wasn't just Alex Kappa, right? It was obviously Dylan Parham. It was Alex Kappa. Jordan Meredith was arguably worse than both of those guys, to be honest with you guys, because Jordan Meredith has the job of snapping the football. I counted like 5 bad snaps from Jordan Meredith. You can just see these plays. A snap's high, a snap's low. Geno Smith, how is he going to read coverage if he has to find the football? To me, you can't blame Geno Smith for some of these plays. There's a 3rd and 6, and Meredith's snap is so bad. The Raiders have a play designed for Brock Bowers. This is probably a first down. If the snap's a good snap, it hits Geno right in his hands. Instead, because of the fact that the ball slid on the ground, the inside runs a defensive line game. The very, very basics of a play is snapping the football, quarterback gets the ball, and he's able to throw a pass. Like, that's the very, very, very basics of a passing play. If you can't snap the ball right, if your quarterback's inaccurate, if he's like throwing it 30 yards over the top of someone, you're not going to have success, right? Like, you need to be able to snap the football. You need to be able to make the easy passes. You need to be able to hand the ball to the running back. Even when you run plays, like when Ashton Jeanty gets the football, how many times have we seen this guy get blown up in the backfield? How many times are offensive linemen going to miss their blocks or not make their blocks? We had a play that was a 3rd and 1, and Zamir White gets the football. He loses 5 yards on this run. Jordan Meredith just doesn't see this, right? And part of this is because he's weak. He's trying to lean into the guy that's kind of lined up on him. He's trying to help Kappa and have Kappa overtake this guy. But as he kind of does this, you see he falls forward and the linebacker blitzes the A gap on the left side, and he blows it up. To me, this just doesn't make sense, right? Jordan Meredith is an awful football player. We saw this in week 1 slightly, and it was very noticeable yesterday against the Chargers. I think the Raiders have to revamp this offensive line going into week 3. If Jackson Powers-Johnson's healthy, which I think at this point he's probably not, if he's healthy, we have to put this guy back at center. And then at the same time, I think the best thing the Raiders could do is take Dylan Parham and move him over to right guard, and I would start Charles Grant at left guard. And I know Charles Grant's not the greatest offensive lineman. He's a rookie. He's a little bit raw, but he's raw if he's playing left tackle, right? If he's raw, if he has to get out in space. But by putting Charles Grant at left guard, Grant's a very, very strong offensive lineman. The guy is very, very strong. And I think by putting Charles Grant at the left guard position, what you're doing is you're going to give yourself a chance in the run game. It might not be great over the next 2 or 3 weeks, but by week 6 or 7, these guys will be clicking and we'll have strong players on the inside, right? To me, I think the Raiders' weakness right now is the interior offensive line. You have Dylan Parham, Alex Kappa, Jordan Meredith, and 2 of those 3 guys are super, super weak. One's kind of struggling, which is Parham to like anchor and those type of things. Parham's not weak necessarily, but like he's just struggling, right? He's having moments where he's struggling. The Raiders are also telling Dylan Parham, and kind of keep this in mind. I talked about this in last week's video. The Raiders are asking Dylan Parham to go in and block in one-on-one situations. What they're saying is, hey, we're going to help the center. We're going to help the right guard. We're going to help DJ Glaze. Colt Miller, you have your one-on-one blocks. Dylan Parham, you have your one-on-one blocks. And yesterday, in the one-on-one situations, Parham just was not able to win a whole lot. I still think if you're double teaming, let's say like Parham gets help from JPJ or JPJ helps Charles Grant, I think we're a better offensive line. I really, really do think that. Now, it's not going to happen. I'd be shocked to see the Raiders go with Charles Grant at left guard. I think it would make our offensive line a lot better, especially running the football. And we're struggling to run the football. Basic stuff. Like just block the guy in front of you. We're struggling to do that. And there's multiple plays you guys can just watch on tape. I also want to just show you guys one other thing. On one play, Ashton Jeanty took the wrong step. I think most people remember this play was 2nd and 5. It didn't ruin the drive because on 3rd down, Geno Smith was able to pick up like 20 yards to Dante Thornton. But this is like basic things. Your running back needs to know which way to step. And this is 100% on Ashton Jeanty. He should have stepped left based off of where the tight end is utilizing the block, right? Like the movement the tight end has here. This is a split zone, so the run should have been to the left. Geno was right on this one. Ashton Jeanty was wrong. There's one other play that I was, didn't really understand. And, I understand what the Raiders are trying to do on this play. It's a Trey Tucker handoff. And they're trying to get Trey Tucker to run what looks to me like in between the tackles. Based off of how DJ Glaze pulls and he kicks his guy outwards, right? Based off of the kick outwards, based off of the way this is designed, it seems like they're trying to get Trey Tucker up the middle. Why? Why are we running Trey Tucker through the middle? Why would we have Trey Tucker come on this end around, hand him the football, and why would we expect him, who's going from right to left at full speed, to put his foot into the ground and then cut through the middle of the offensive line? That doesn't make sense to me. And of course, Trey Tucker doesn't do that because it doesn't make sense. If he's getting the football running left, he's going to continue running. He's going to try to go outside. And with that, this play is not really designed for Tucker to go to the outside. This play is designed for him to go to the inside. This play makes no sense to me. I don't know what the hell the Raiders are thinking on this play. Truth be told, Dante Thornton misses his block. Colt Miller doesn't get to his block. Part of why these guys don't get to their blocks is because this play is designed to go to the inside, not the outside. But you have Tucker going into motion this way. Again, this does not make sense to me at all. This is a terribly designed play right here. That's on Chip Kelly, right? That is 100% on Chip Kelly. I'm not sure what he's doing. Jeanty's going the wrong way on one play. You have a play with Trey Tucker where you're throwing him the football in motion, and you expect him to cut up field through the inside of the offensive lineman. Like, this play is designed to go inside, right? Like, I'm not speculating. That's what the play is designed based off the offensive lineman, the way DJ Glaze kicks his guy outwards. But why are we designing this play? It doesn't make sense to me. Now, I want to wrap this video up talking a little bit about some of the defensive guys, because there's some guys that looked really, really good out there for the Raiders. Maxx Crosby was phenomenal. For as much as the Raiders were unable to actually score points at the end of the game, the Raiders defense got off the field multiple times, and they gave our offense multiple opportunities. Maxx Crosby had a phenomenal play in which he blew it up and forced a fumble. Now, this was right after Geno Smith took the sack on 4th and 3 where he's trying to look at Brock Bowers. This play was literally the next play right after that. The game was over, right? Or at least should have theoretically been over because it was a 2-possession game. The Chargers were already in field goal range. The game should have been over, but Maxx Crosby flips the script. He forces the fumble. Maxx Crosby is an absolute superstar, and I'm so glad this guy's with the Raiders. Yesterday, we didn't get a lot of pressure on the Chargers quarterback, but there's a couple different reasons for this. Some people will say, hey, Maxx Crosby sucks. That's why we didn't get pressure. But the truth is Justin Herbert, one, is a mobile quarterback. He's very fast. He's probably just as fast as Maxx Crosby, which means he's faster than Tyree Wilson. He's faster than Adam Butler. He's faster than Jonah Lawley. He's faster than all these other guys out there. So right away, when you're pass rushing Justin Herbert, you need to pass rush in a way where you're containing this guy within the pocket. If even one guy goes too far, Justin Herbert will get out of there. And Herbert did that yesterday. Multiple plays, this guy was able to create plays with his legs. So right away, as a pass rush, you are slowing down to contain Justin Herbert. If you don't contain him, he's gonna take off running. He's gonna take off, create a play, and he'll find people downfield. So right away, you have this containment as you're pass rushing. The other aspect of it is the Chargers run the football so much. Even when they throw the football, it's gonna be a play action. So every single offense lineman is jumping out towards the defense lineman. So everybody's defending the run before they're getting into their pass rush. The Chargers also got up on the Raiders, so, we had to play the run before we played the pass. It's different if the Raiders were up 2 touchdowns and now the Chargers were trying to catch up to the Raiders. In that instance, the Raiders' defensive line will be able to just pass rush because most of the time when you're down 2 touchdowns, you're going to be throwing the football. Same logic kind of happened on the other side of this against the Raiders. We're basically in a situation where we knew we needed to throw the football. The Chargers did not have to defend the run. They're basically just sitting back in pass coverage, and that's a huge disadvantage to the quarterback, to our offense. So, our pass rush may not have been great, but we got to look at the script of the game. We got to understand the team we're playing, the quarterback we're playing. And some people question why Maxx Crosby was dropping back into coverage. There are 2 plays that he dropped back in coverage against the Chargers yesterday. Both times, the Raiders were actually in base defense. So, the fact that the Raiders were in base defense, Maxx Crosby ended up being a guy that kind of drops back. One of those plays that he dropped back into coverage was the 60-yard touchdown pass. I talked about earlier on this video how, if the Chargers come out in a cover 4 defense, you need to design plays to beat the cover 4. Well, the Raiders come out in a cover 3 defense, and the Chargers designed a play to beat cover 3. And their play worked, and they scored a 60-yard touchdown. The difference between the Raiders and the Chargers is that the Chargers' offensive line actually holds up. The Chargers have a good interior offensive line. Zion Johnson's pretty solid. Mekhi Becton's pretty solid. These guys are able to hold up. Their tackles, Trey Pipkins has played a lot of football in the NFL. He's a pretty solid tackle. Joe Wall, one of the better tackles in the NFL. These guys are legit this is a legit offensive line that we're looking at. So, yeah, it doesn't help that Maxx Crosby dropped and you're only bringing 3 guys. But even if Maxx Crosby came off the edge, chances are the Chargers' offensive line would have held up. So, 60-yard touchdown play. Yes, Maxx Crosby dropped into coverage. It's not a great look, but we do have to realize that with Max dropping off, it's because of the fact that we're in base defense. So, there are moments when if you're in base defense, especially given, we're going to come out, we might come with 5 defensive linemen. You might have to have a guy in Max drop off. Now, there might have been confusion on the 60-yard touchdown. Also, some people are saying this is 100% on Isaiah Pola Mao. Technically, it's not, right? Technically, this play is on Caillou Blue Kelly. But Kelly does, in the middle of this play, actually tell Isaiah Pola Mao, hey, I'm passing this guy off to you. Right? He points it out. So, yes, Isaiah Pola Mao should have technically been the guy to take him. You can't say it's 100% on Pola Mao. You can't say it's 100% on Caillou Blue Kelly. It's just miscommunication. On top of that, you run a cover 3 beater. You design a play to beat cover 3. The same way the Raiders designed that Trey Tucker play to beat the Chargers defense. If your O-line holds up, if your guys run the right routes, if your quarterback makes an accurate pass, you're going to score a touchdown. The Chargers hit that play. The Raiders did not. That's one of the big differences in this game. If you design plays to beat a defense and you run that play and it works, you're going to win. You're going to have success. Now, Isaiah Pola Mao may not have been 100% responsible for that Quentin Johnson touchdown, but he is responsible for the 3 missed tackles he had. Isaiah Pola Mao is a terrible tackler, especially out in space. This is one of the knocks that I had on Isaiah Pola Mao. In space, Isaiah Pola Mao is not a good tackler. And I think this is one of the things the Raiders have to really figure out, because you can't have your starting safety, a guy that's playing in the middle of the field, and you can't have him miss tackles. Some of these plays could led to a touchdown. There was another play that I think Isaiah Pola Mao is responsible for. It was a red zone situation. Keenan Allen ran right behind Isaiah Pola Mao. Mao saw him, but he was just slow to react. Justin Herbert also created a play with his legs, and Keenan Allen ended up getting open for a touchdown. This is on Pola Mao. You have to be faster as a safety. You have to react quicker. I'm not an absolute huge fan of Trayvon Merrick, but Trayvon Merrick would have recognized this play and run with this play quicker, right? And that's not a knock on Pola Mao, but, this is, there's a reason why Pola Mao was our backup safety going into last season, and Trayvon Merrick was starting. And again, it's not a knock on Pola Mao, right? He may develop into a really good safety at some point down the line, but there are concerns that I have. The 60-yard pass to Quentin Johnson, it might not be 100% on Pola Mao, but a good safety gets over the top and breaks the pass up. And if you don't break the pass up, if you're 100% unable to get there, you at least make the tackle so the Quentin Johnson does not score a touchdown. Pola Mao even took a bad angle on that play. All right, and maybe I'm nitpicking a little bit, but there's just moments where you watch Isaiah Pola Mao and it's just not good. There's cover 2s that the Raiders run, and Pola Mao's slow to get over the top. If you're in a cover 2, if you're in a cover 3 and you're a safety and you have a responsibility, you need to be able to get there. If you're unable to get there, you're not going to have success as a defense. Jeremy Chin looked really good for the Raiders yesterday. He didn't look as good in week 1 against the Patriots, but yesterday he made a couple of really nice plays. There's a moment where the Raiders were down 17-6, right? There was a moment when the Raiders needed to get a stop. And the Raiders defense got a stop. I think it was the first drive that the Chargers had the football in the second half. I'm pretty sure they drove right downfield on us. And they got all the way down to the 2-yard line. And on the second down play that they tried running the football, Jeremy Chin blew it up. He got in there, made the play, stopped the Chargers from scoring a touchdown. On the third down play, they tried running it again. Jeremy Chin blows it up. Score is 17-6 at this point. So the fact that we stopped them from the 2-yard line on 3 plays, right, back to back to back. The fact that the Raiders held the Chargers to 3 points, because after they stopped them on third down, the Chargers kicked the field goal. That gave us an opportunity, right? If the score is 17-6 and you only kick a field goal, it's now 20-6. It's still a 2-possession game. The Raiders are still in that game. Jeremy Chin made some nice plays down into the down in that situation. So shout out to him. He also had a really nice pass breakup. This was the right after the very first interception that Geno Smith threw. This was on the first drive, 3rd and 5. Jeremy Chin breaks the pass up. The Raiders defense stopped the Chargers on that very first drive, and they held them to a field goal. So Jeremy Chin, shout out to him. Jamal Adams had a couple of nice plays, and there's some other guys as well, right? Some defensive linemen that had a good game. I do plan to do a separate film breakdown tomorrow, like really getting into every single play by the offensive lineman. We'll look at some of the defensive line maybe the day after. Generally speaking, just to wrap this up, I don't think the Raiders were as bad as some people think they were. I don't think Geno Smith was nearly as bad, given the fact that, you have a terrible offensive line, given Brock Bowers, your number one weapon, is hurt, given Chip Kelly, for some reason, does not know how to beat the cover 2, cover 4, or at least he didn't in the first half. Just little things like that to me did not make sense. Overall, I think the Raiders will bounce back from this loss. It's not the end of the world. We're not going to go 17-0 anyways. We'll bounce back. We have the Washington Commanders coming up here in a couple of days. So we'll see what ends up happening in that game. Let me know what you guys think in the comments below. Thumbs up, subscribe, and I'll see you guys next time with another video.